I always go back and forth with that because I feel like nobody listens to them, but maybe somebody out there will care. All right, so this is Marcos um, 2, 10 through 11, using modern Hebrew, but as you'll see, as always, there's some problems with that, the translation. This also appears in Matthew. I hope my pen behaves. That's not even readable, but Matthew 9, 1 through 8, towards the end, I think it starts at verse 6, and then also in Luke 5, 17. Oops. Pen's just doing its own thing. Let's see if I unplug it and plug it back in. Maybe it'll work. No, now it's not working at all. Oh, there we go. Oops. Well, a lot of times my internet connection is just not that. It's kind of weird. Anyway, Luke 5:17. Just have to suffer through it, through 26. So those are other places where you can read a similar account. So I'll read it and then discuss some of the grammar. Ach lema'an tedeu ki leven ha'adam hasamchut lisloach al chataim ale adamot as amal למשותח אליך אני אומר קום קח את אלונקה ולך לביתך. האלונקה. Okay, just making sure I said that right. Alright, so we go back. So, ach lema'an tedeu, in order that you will know. Tedeu is a cow. That would be cow perfect, imperfect. 2MP. So, in order that you will know, ki leven ha'adam, to the son, or to the son of man. Hasamchut lisloach. So, authority, the authority, hasamchut, lisloach, not cal infinitive, but is an infinitive. To forgive, al chataim, so sins, and then alea adamot. I don't really like. In the Greek, it would be epites ges. So, or adama. Ges is land, sorry. Then you have adama or eretz. I just don't like the modern Hebrew presentation. So on the earth, meaning among men. So epites geis or ale adamot, literally on the earth. But meaning among men or humans, humanity. If I say men, it doesn't mean just men. It means humans or humanity as a whole. Hasamchut or authority. Lisloach, to forgive. The authority to forgive sins has, if you look up, eskuzion, from eskusia is what you would see in the Greek. Hasamchut, so it's the divine authority that has been granted to Yeshua. So usually if you see this form, hasamchut lisloach, so usually you'll see what has been granted, which is the authority to forgive sins, and it's usually with an infinitive construct together to tell you what has been granted. So if we think about this authority being granted, then you have to say who grants the authority. So it would be Yahweh granting Yeshua the authority to forgive sins upon the earth or among humanity on the earth. And then how do we know that then? So then we'd have to go to Isaiah 43, 25, and we also have Psalm 32, 5. So if we go to Isaiah, there it is. Isaiah 43:25 says, Anochi, Anochi, who? So I am, you have a double I, who? So moche, erase, pesha, echa. So pesha is the lexical form. It can be like crimes, rebellion, or intentional sins. Lema'ani, on my account, v'chatotecha, and your sins. So you have these crimes and sinfulness. Lo ezkor, I will not remember. So here Yahweh is saying that He is the one that has the authority, or it's Yahweh's power. So then when we look at this verse, we understand that this samchut, or authority, has been granted to Yeshua by Yahweh to forgive the sins of humanity on the earth. So this is where His power comes from the Father. In Psalm 32:5, I think I already have. Go. Can go there. This is David. Chatati, I sinned. Odi acha. Have my notes here. So I will make known to you. Velo lo chisiti. So va'avoni, in my transgressions, lo chisiti, I did not cover. Amarti, I said ode ale. So ale, this ayin lamed yud, it's actually like comes from Eli, so exalted one. So I will thank the exalted one. Fesha I, lo Yahweh, I committed this rebellious crime basically against Yahweh. Ve'ata nasata, and you, nasata avon. Remember we talked about this, to bear one's sin. So usually, like if you break the covenant, for example, it says that he will bear his sin. Nasa means to carry or bear, and avon is a sin. But here he says ata, you, nasata, and it's a double U. Ata nasata, avon, sin or transgression. Chatati, I sinned, and then Selah. Makes sense to you? Does it make sense what I'm saying?
So far, yeah.
Okay. So Yeshua's authority circumvents the perceived authority of the religious leaders later, and so you see in the different accounts, Yeshua is being presented as one who, on the basis of his own high authority, does not fit into the religious expectations of his contemporaries, and for this reason they want to kill him, because he is not And Luke's account brings a broader audience of Pharisees and teachers of the Torah from every village of Galilee, Judea, and Jerusalem. And we are also told, again, the power of Yahweh, in the Lucan account, the power of Yahweh was with him to heal. In the English it says the power of the Lord, which I kind of think, I don't know, like when you see the divine name written out, or that you understand that that's what's being said, it kind of gives you a different perspective. So this authority that was granted to Yeshua was, again, granted by Yahweh. And if we turn to the Lucan account, we see that that is outlined there. So, and that's it. So when Yeshua does say he doesn't come on his own authority, so he comes on the authority of the Father, who grants him this power. And this is also where people get like confused in the book of John in the first chapter, because it doesn't say that Yeshua is the God of Israel. It says that he has this divine attributes of the God of Israel, and that those attributes and power has been granted to him by the Father. And then he always points us to the Father, right? So it's not the one, it's the one who sent me that you are obeying, or and so on. So anyway, thoughts? Any thoughts on that? Or
Yeah, it's, well, I mean, it makes it pretty clear that that's where his authority comes from. Although when they were kind of asking him directly, I like the way he did that. He said, "Let me ask you a question. You answer that, then I'll tell you."
right.
They couldn't answer it. It's like, well, I ain't gonna tell you.
Well, because they should have known. They should have known the answer.
Yes,
So this is the
true,
thing. They should have known it, and they didn't know.
Right.
Or like he says to the other teacher, "You are a teacher of Israel, and that you do not know this. You need to go back. You need to go back to the Torah. You need to read it again,
Right,
because
yeah.
you know." And then everything is, there's like so many different things, like the audience is just another, or the crowds of people just represent Israel in the wilderness again. And the hard-heartedness is still the same, a parallel to the children in the wilderness. In the Greek, I forget the word, but it means, when Yeshua says to them, I've said all this to you and you still don't understand. And the word that's used means that their heart has no feeling. So their hearts are cold without feeling. Because they still, and these are the ones who were close to him, and contrary to popular belief too, like the idea that Yeshua was going out to be popular, but he wasn't. Really the chief position was the restoration of Israel. There's a little blurb that I wanted to read, but now I don't remember where it was in this book. But the consensus is it's Israel, even though the word church is inserted into so many things, but it's wrong.
Yeah.
And even if you read some of the scholarly commentaries of Christians, they will say this, it's like double talk. Like they'll say one thing, like it's Israel, and then the next minute they'll say, oh, but the church. So like, you can't have it both ways. So we know anyway, there's just Israel. Sorry. But there's nothing.
Yeah.
There really isn't anything else or any other community. And like when the disciples asked before Yeshua ascended, and they said, when are you going to restore the kingdoms of Israel? When will they be restored? And he say, oh well, I got to confer with the Catholics first before I can give you an answer to that. But I'll get back to you on that. But he didn't say that. He just said it's not for me to know. It's not for you to know. And so that was that. But he didn't say, well, that's not going to happen. I mean. And or he didn't say, well, that's spiritual Israel, though. He didn't say any of those things,
Right.
That's why you always get that kind of quasi idea, like from Christians, because they believe, like, okay, there is Israel, but they don't know why, so they're just like, well, it's there, and or they say, well, we believe, the Israel, but really what they believe is that eventually all the Jews are going to come to Christianity. Like Israel's going to turn into a Christian nation somehow, like the wave of a magic wand, even though that hasn't happened in like 5,000 years, and it's never going to happen anyway. But like I think that's basically consensus, because, or like I read something and they were talking about the bride of Christ. They're like, the church is the bride of Christ, and then they were like, well, Israel also has Israel is the bride of Christ. So now, I mean, so does he have two wives, or I'm totally confused. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's just, well, I think people don't really think about what they say. They just say what they've heard, like a parrot,
Right.
parroting.
And the problem is that most Christians don't spend that much time in the Old Testament to see how this works,
Right,
and then they don't understand Paul, because if you don't understand the Tanakh, you're
right.
not going to understand Paul,
Well, you're not gonna understand
because
anything. You're not gonna understand
because
anything.
he understood all that stuff, and he explained it, but if you don't have that background, you're going to get it all twisted.
Right, and then also, like I told you, I read in that book, which is a scholarly material, but he said what I always say is that whenever you read anything in the apostolic writings, then you have to ask yourself, where in the Tanakh is it? And then, of
Mm,
course, the book of
exactly.
Revelations, as we already know,
Right.
has 250 references to the Tanakh, and also is based on the book of Daniel too. So there's a lot of that in there. So if you don't know, like, how can you read the book of Revelations without knowing what's written in the Tanakh? You can't. You just can't know.
You can't.
Right?
You can't.
It's not
You're going to get it
possible.
all messed up,
Right.
which they
So
have.
right, right. So anyway, alrighty, Richard.